Okay, this is a quick tutorial about making HDR, high dynamic range images. What is HDR? It is actually a combination of several identical images taken at different exposures so that you can combine the detail across the dynamic range. That way you can include detail from light to dark that would not normally be possible in a single photograph. So here we go, it's quite simple. I'm going to be using Photograph. There are many ways you can do it. I prefer to use Photoshop. I've got 3 images ready, so you just go File, Automate, Merge to HDR Pro, look for your images. I have 3 identical images here, taken at different exposures. We have one that's underexposed, one that's correctly exposed, and one that's overexposed. I'm going to select all 3 images, import them into HDR Pro. Just give it a minute for Photoshop to work its magic. Now Photoshop will be picking out the detail from all 3 photographs and creating one high dynamic range image that has detail across the spectrum. It's now open Camera Pro. It's actually in 16-bit at the moment. Personally, I prefer to work in 32-bit because it gives a finer result, but I'm using 16-bit. It's easier to demonstrate the controls to you. Here you can make adjustments from exposure, detail, shadow, highlight, vibrance and saturation. I'm not going to make any adjustments here. I'm going to do them all in Photoshop. When you're ready, just click OK and the image will then open in Photoshop. Now we have an image with detail across the dynamic range. We have detail here in the sky without losing detail in the shadows. Want to make some changes here. I normally prefer to work in adjustment layers simply because by working in an adjustment layer we can monitor what we're doing and hide it just to check the effect. So if I, for example, pump up the contrast here, I can then hide this layer and I can see what it would look like without that layer. So I'll leave that there. Contrast is up, maybe a touch less. Make it 20. There we go. Okay. Next one, if I want to adjust the hue saturation, here we go. Here, if you want to pump up the colours a little bit, it's unless you're looking for a specific effect, it's best not to go too mad, because otherwise it just can look totally fake. But then if that's the intention of the image, then by all means go for it. You can even add a black and white adjustment layer. So for example, if I add a black and white adjustment layer here, I can then use the colours to modify the black and white image. Unlike simply converting the image to grayscale, where you're then confined to brightness and contrast, by using a black and white layer, adjustment layer, on a colour image, the colour image is actually still present underneath. So that enables me then to isolate individual colours across the spectrum and adjust those. So for example, we know the sky is a combination of say blue and cyan. I can simply remove a little bit of the blue, a little bit of the cyan, and there we go, we've got one of those lovely dark skies that highlights the clouds and makes them stand out a bit more. You can toggle around depending what the photograph is of. Different colours will affect different parts of the image. If I toggle the yellow, as I remove the yellow, it affects parts of the spectrum that are green. Same as we go with the red. If we adjust that, we can even take these right up and practically go for a infrared effect. There you go. But that's down to personal preference and depending on the effect that you're after. So if I remove these layers, now we've got back the original lit image, with the exception of any personal adjustments that you would like. That's our HDR image completed and done.